They like to be where the action is. These are people. So all this is around people. They're energetic and fast-paced. They influence others in an optimistic way. They're very optimistic. They're positive. They're not concerned with They're not concerned with facts or details. They're very open with their feelings. You know what the verb is of emotions? You know what the verb word for emotions is? Emote. That's the word emote. They are emoters. So if you are an analytical where you're not an emoter, being around a bunch of emoters is very irritating, right? They hate boring tasks. They like to be with other people. I gave this class to the Chamber of Commerce, a lunch and learn in Parker, and afterwards the head of the Chamber of Commerce came over and said, oh my goodness, she had this really social, just a fun person. Socials are fun to be around. A very social person doing all this detailed, like entering in the spreadsheet stuff, and she's like, oh my goodness, I've got, whatever her name was, Betty, doing all this data entry. No wonder she's going crazy. She's making me crazy, because they're not built for that. They're not built for the details. We're going to talk about analyticals next. So with an analytical, when you say, I'll call you at 7, they will, when you call at 7, they'll be like, wow, you're right on time. When you call the social that you said, I'll call us, they don't know what time it is, right? They're not interested in that kind of detail. So what does a social need? Popularity, social recognition, noteworthy rewards. They like to be recognized. So often in companies, what companies will do is they'll do public recognition. So for some personality styles, people love to be publicly recognized, but some of the personality styles hate to be publicly recognized. Isn't that interesting? So oftentimes reward programs will suffer because not everyone, as you'll see in this, is motivated by the same things. They love people to talk to, they love group activities, they love casual, warm relationships. They want freedom from control and detail. They're not great data entry people. Approval and friendliness, and they love to identify with others. They want to be in the team, in the group, right? Their fears is social rejection and not being liked. Does the driver care about being liked? No. So just two different styles, and isn't it really different? So if you go up to a driver, when I was working in that factory, I made some change, and one of the workers was like, everyone's gonna be mad at you. And as a driver, it's like, it doesn't even register, right? If there's a radar screen in my brain, that doesn't even show up on the radar screen. But if I was a social, that would be a big concern. So some examples of socials: Han Solo, Pippin. Who's Pippin from? Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings. Sorry, Caleb, I thought that was a softball for you. Woody. Woody from Toy Story. He's super social, isn't he? Donkey from, what movie is that from? Shrek. Right? He's real social. And Shrek was like real, just kind of driver, just to the point. And what happened between Donkey and Shrek made Shrek crazy, right? Bill Clinton. So you guys are too young for this, but Bill Clinton, when he would do his State of the Unions, he would talk for an hour, and then there would be 4 hours of analysis on the news following it, trying to figure out what exactly did he mean by what he said. Because as a social, there wasn't a lot of details. The adults would appreciate this, but I promise you it happened. It was so funny. It was a wonderful, engaging, socials are optimistic. it'd be all this stuff, and then afterward, everyone would try to figure out what exactly did all that mean, and what is he going to do with all that. Oprah Winfrey, we all know Oprah. She's definitely social. And then steadiness. Steadiness is actually our amiables. So amiable is like the go along, get along. So amiables, I'm going to turn my page. They're indirect in communication. So let me explain that. My mom is a steady. So when she would come out to Colorado and the kids were small, we would make plans. Like, hey mom, while you're here, you want to go see Garden of the Gods? Sure. So the next morning would come, when you have little kids, you get them up, you feed them, you clothe them, and then they're hungry, and then you feed them, and then you clean them up from the feeding. So it's a big production to get them in the car, right? And we're about walking out the door, and what does the steady do? Well, we really don't have to go, if you don't want to go. They don't want to rock the boat. It's like, for the last hour and a half we've been getting, right? We're going to Garden of the Gods. Right? So that's what I mean by indirect in communication. They're very supportive of other people. Lots of times you'll see steadies in support roles, like administrative assistants. That's not the only place they're at, but they're very helpful people. They're excellent listeners. They hate conflict. Hate conflict. We were talking about The Office. Who's the tall guy that, Jim? Jim is pretty amiable, right? And we just watched an episode last night where he gets put back with Chatty Cathy and she wants different things done. That made him feel so uncomfortable because they don't want any conflict. They're slow at taking action or making decisions. They're very concerned with other people's feelings. They don't like pushy people. They're very courteous and friendly. They think very logically. They want a lot of documentation and facts. Where the driver just wants bottom line, will make quick decisions. The amiable, they don't want to make their own decisions. They want to be able to fall back on facts or what the experts say, things like that. They prefer a step-by-step process. They need consistent performance, team orientation. So amiables get real uncomfortable when they're on a team and the team is dysfunctional. They like status quo. So oftentimes in offices, when I was working in different corporate offices, at least once a year there'd be a rearrangement of the office and you have to move seats. Sometimes we did it like every 3 months for various reasons. It would send the amiables to the moon because they like status quo. Their fears, loss of stability, change, conflict, and making difficult decisions that can be questioned. So some examples of these folks: Luke Skywalker. Luke was always kind of worried about everyone else's feelings, right? Frodo. Rex the dinosaur in Toy Story. The gingerbread man in Shrek. Mr. Rogers. Did anybody ever see Mr. Rogers? He was kind of before your time, at reruns, or he was on PBS. Great guy to hang out with, right? Concerned about your feelings, more concerned about you than about himself. These are nice people. Jimmy Carter is another one. Using a president as an example. All right, analyticals. They're indirect in their communication. Where the driver will just tell you. Analyticals are indirect. They control themselves. This doesn't mean that they're potty trained. Okay? This has to do with their emotions. Analyticals don't emote very much. They're great problem solvers. They can seem aloof because they don't communicate much and they don't show much emotion. So sometimes they can appear to be aloof. Doesn't mean that they are. They ask a lot of questions. They do a thorough analysis. They avoid risk. They're unemotional. They comply with rules. They prefer to work alone. They avoid conflict, and and they're very serious, orderly, and perfectionist. That's right, Jonah. And when I click the slide, Luke's face is going to pop up. Now, Luke is an excellent example of serious, orderly perfectionist, right? So this just kind of helps you understand the analyticals. Needs all the facts and the data. They need all the facts, all the data. What do the socials want? None of that stuff, right? They need to be correct. When an analytical makes a mistake, they explain why they made the mistake. And you'll hear that in some of our telephone calls we're going to listen to. They go step by step on how they got to their mistake. Quality, rules, predictability. Their fears is criticism of their work or making mistakes. The driver is just kind of going through doing things quick, right? And they can live with making mistakes. Analyticals, it's crushing. So some examples: C-3PO, Star Wars, Legolas, Mrs. Potato Head from Toy Story, Lord Farquaad was an analytical. Alan Dershowitz, man, he is classic analytical. You know who Alan Dershowitz is? He's always on news programs. He's like a Harvard professor, Harvard Law School professor or something. He's older, he's probably 70-ish. If you ever see Alan Dershowitz on TV, he's an analytical. And then Bill Gates. Would Bill Gates be like real fun to hang out with? No, you know, right? He's very serious, very orderly, going through the motions. What?
We're not Luke.
Said you were like this, and then said that they aren't very fun to hang
Bam.
out. We could also.
Okay, so that was a heavy lifting. So now what we want to do is let's start unpacking this and making it easier, because our first objective is to learn how to identify the different styles. So this is a great graphic. It was many years before I came across this graphic. So pace, that can be how fast people talk, or how long their pauses are, like when they're thinking. Like my pauses are this long. Cindy's pauses are like this long. So you can imagine a conversation. She stops talking, and now I'm like processing. So my pause is a little bit longer, and then she jumps back in, right? Because she's got all these little pauses. So that's pace. Emotions. Do we emote or not? Do we express or do we control our emotions? And then assertiveness is ask versus tell. So you are with 4 of your friends, so there's 5 of you total. So you, let's say it's after a summer church youth event. Creekside has these youth events in the summer, and they wrap up at like 8 o'clock or whatever. So you are with 4 others, and each of them represents a different personality style. And you say, where do you want to go? You know, we're going to go out afterwards. We're going to go get ice cream or something. Where do you want to go for ice cream?
Nowhere.
What do you think? What do you think the driver is going to say? Right, Abby. Abby nailed it. She said the driver will just burst out Dairy Queen. They'll just say it. What will the social do?
Whatever you want.
Yeah.
What will the analytical do?
Think about it.
Think about it. And what will the amiable do?
Go with whatever, I guess.
Yeah. What do you guys want to do? So, I promise you, do this tomorrow somehow. Y'all go to church tomorrow and you're in a group, ask some question like that. And you will crack up, because you'll see it happen every time. Okay, so, let's do, just as an example, Luke, Mike, Abby, and Nicole. Would you guys come up here, please? So, of these 4 people, not everybody knows everybody in here, but of these 4 people, who has the fastest pace? Like talking,
Nicole.
fastest pace?
Nicole.
No. I didn't know if you were kidding or not. I was waiting for you to laugh. No. Who has the fastest pace?
Abby.
Abby.
Yeah.
Abby or Mike. So Abby, go down there. And then just to make it easier, who has the slowest pace? Luke. All right. So what we did just there, that wasn't rocket science. Maybe it is for the ones that don't know these people, but when you know